Pixels. Pixels ruined the games industry. Remember back in the good old days when games had good graphics and looked just like real life? Well, ever since Minecraft, game developers realized that paying people to rig 3D models was a waste of time because they could just do all the art in MS Paint. And now everything looks like frickin' Roblox. So when I saw Noita, a game where the entire world is made of individually simulated pixels, I thought, well, this game obviously embodies everything wrong with the modern games industry. But then, unlike a real video game journalist, I actually decided to play it and realized, this is some good shit. Noita is an action-adventure roguelike game by Nolla Games that does a great job at pissing you off. It throws you into its game world and that's about all it does for you. From there it's up to you to figure out what the hell to do and how you're gonna get yourself killed next. Not only does this game place emphasis on having a punishing permadeath system, but it also really builds itself around letting players experiment and tinker with its mechanics, allowing a real sense of freedom and satisfaction when you manage to delve deeper into its world. The game is still within its early access period, though has already built itself around a solid core of content that is unlikely to drastically change in the future and is enjoyable enough for several hours already. But all things considered, should you buy it? If you want to strip Noita down to its basics, what you have here is a run-and-gun platformer with an emphasis on exploration and experimentation in its procedurally generated world. The game has been optimized from the ground up to make the most of its particle effects and physics system, which is a lot of fun to play with. A big part of the game is coming across an explosive barrel or a lamp above a pool of oil and knowing that shooting it is a bad idea, but doing it anyway because the particle effects are cool. The physical mechanics aren't just for show either, as you can use explosions, falling debris and liquids to your advantage, both in killing enemies and for traversing the map. The game really builds itself around these mechanics and it adds a satisfying edge to both the combat and exploration. There's a plethora of different wands and spells that you'll either collect throughout each stage or purchase in each Holy Mountain interim. There are ones that let you shoot fireballs, ones that let you shoot lasers, some of them let you play Minecraft. Wands can also be edited and spells moved around, with wands having different amounts of spell slots, stats and effects. It can be a little overwhelming at first, but with some experimentation, you'll quickly figure out which spells and combinations you like and which ones are total dog shit. There's also the game's perk system, as in each Holy Mountain you'll be able to choose from a random selection of perks that can have vastly different effects, and you'll have a number of them racked up by the later parts of the game. Some, like boomeranging spells, are rather situational to say the least. I did get a little frustrated at the spell balancing, as I found that if I really wanted to stand much of a chance in the later stages, I'd need to find or be able to buy a specific spell like the lightning bolt or gatling laser, which sometimes you just would not be able to find and there's little you can do about it. And if there is a word that can be used to easily describe your Noita experience, it's frustrating. You will die, that much is almost a certainty, and it's not always the game's difficulty that gets you, but rather your own inexperience. Noita does not spoon feed you, it doesn't hold your hand, and it certainly doesn't tuck you in and kiss you goodnight. You're simply dropped into its world and sent on your way. Being a roguelike, it's already punishing, but the game also has a way of teaching you about its game world and the mechanics that lie within by killing you for being an idiot. In one of my early playthroughs, I found a cool wand that shot giant buzzsaws, and proceeded to almost immediately eviscerate myself with it. The game isn't easy by any means either. It's fucking hard, not least because of your own inexperience. The combat can get real dicey, especially if you find yourself surrounded or cornered, and some of the later stage enemies with shields can be a real pain, which is why I found myself playing a lot of the later stages like a little bitch. Unlike a lot of other roguelikes, there is no bonus or takeaway from each run other than pure gameplay experience. You won't stack up collectibles or be able to start with a better weapon. You're not meant to die, which is what makes it all the more infuriating when you do. I found myself having to take a break pretty often because I'd get so far through only to kill myself in a manner so stupid that I began to think that those warnings from Wii Sports might have been onto something. While I think that people can tend to overreact in the way of modern games being far too handholdy, I think that there is a great amount of fun to be had in letting players experiment with mechanics and tools to let them figure things out for themselves, and I think that this game executes this really well. Put it this way, I never messed around with no buzzsaw again. And it's not only for the combat. One time I decided to just keep going off to the side instead of delving down, and lo and behold I found a desert with a big pyramid in it. Noita subverts your expectations, and you realize that it's not just one perfectly linear route going straight down. And while the game can and almost certainly will frustrate you, it doesn't kill you in a way that's unfair. You can't blame a dodgy camera angle, and the physics and movement are pretty tight, so it's never really a glitch's fault. Trial and error are a big part of the game. I'd encourage you not to go into it with the wiki open, because learning what works for you and exploring its game world on your own makes the game so much more satisfying. Being an early access title, and with the nature of its pixel simulation, I was expecting the game to be slightly buggier than it was, which was not really at all. I didn't experience any crashes and didn't get stuck in any walls, which was a nice surprise. The Falling Everything engine which Nola Games developed for this is great, and they deserve commendation. Enemy AI was pretty good for the most part, though I did find that some enemies such as worms could have a little trouble reaching you and could be cheesed pretty easily, but I did like how there were basically different factions of enemies and they'd often be fighting amongst themselves. Aesthetically, I wasn't blown away by the game, but was more impressed with how the visuals held up in the game engine. I did enjoy the game's dynamic music, which would pop up when it realized you were in a pinch, and I enjoyed the game's diverse environments. Not only visually, but how some had big open spaces, and some forced you into more cutthroat close quarters combat. Overall, even when nitpicking, there's not a lot of bad things to be said about the game. I get that it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but give credit where credit is due. What Noita does, it does well. I had quite a lot of fun with Noita. It made me want to rip my head off sometimes, sure, but even after needing to take a few breaks, I found myself eager to jump back in and go one further than where I got the time before. My favourite aspect of the game was the freedom that comes with allowing the player to experiment not only with its spells and wands, but the environment itself. It really adds a whole extra level of enjoyment and replay value to the game. And for the price, it's certainly not a bad buy, and I think it's what an early access game should be. A game that's already got its core content available and is being slowly tweaked and added to over this development period. I do worry that a big part of the magic of Noita is gone now that I've played through and died countless times in it, and that I might not be incredibly moved by its final release, but I'll certainly still be keeping an eye on it. And for any of you masochistic roguelike fans, there's a surprisingly addicting treat to be found here.